Hey, welcome to Upon Further Review, brought to you by Coors Light. I'm your host, Paul Gutierrez. Well, last week I caught up with Chris Rose, Solomon Wilcots, and Q Myers to talk about the ups and downs of the NFL scouting combine. The Raiders, well, they were on the minds and lips of everyone in Indy, holding the number one draft pick, boasting almost $100 million in salary cap space, and oh yeah, breaking in a new coach in Clint Kubiak. That will do that. But the talk was not only about Fernando Mendoza. The discussion went deeper than the Heisman winner and the national champ. Let's get into it. The cool thing about being in this business is every now and again you got to do, like in Boomerang, you got to reverse it. You got to do different things. Usually when I'm with Q Myers on Raider Nation Radio, he's interviewing me, but now I'm the one wearing the mushroom belt, Q. I'm going to interview you about everything that you're seeing and doing out there in Indianapolis. You were in the room when John Spytek was at the podium. You were in the room when Clint Kubiak spoke to a select handful of reporters. Just in kind of a nutshell kind of a thing here, what has the experience been like so far with the Raiders obviously being on the lips of everybody in attendance?
Yeah, that's the cool thing about this whole experience this time around is that the Raiders are in the like you said, the lips of everybody, man. Everyone's talking about either Max Crosby or they're talking about Clint Kubiak. They're talking about Fernando Mendoza possibly being the Raiders quarterback. They're talking about the salary cap space. I mean, and it's all leading back to Las Vegas. It's all leading back to the Raiders. And so for me, I've been, requested for interviews by so many different outlets, which is cool. I love this kind of stuff, but it just lets you know how the Raiders are really being talked about right now. And so it's fun, man, and getting to sit down with Clint Kubiak and talk football and realize that that's what Clint Kubiak's all about. If you get a chance to talk football with him, it's a great conversation because, man, he's really a sharp offensive mind and sharp just football mind in general. And you could tell why the Raiders made that hire just by listening to him for 20, 25 minutes that we had.
Yeah, to localize it a little bit, you and I have talked about this all the time. I'm a UNLV guy, and I remember sitting like at a lunch table one time with Jerry Tarkanian way back in the day and asking about the amoeba defense. And he would pull out salt shakers, and he'd pull out sugar packs and things, and he would line them up on a table to show exactly how the amoeba worked. What was that conversation like with Clint Kubiak when he's talking about what his scheme looks like? I know he was asked about the identity. He said he didn't want his players reading about it before he got a chance to tell them. But in terms of the scheme and the schematics, what was that conversation like with Clint?
It was awesome, and real quick on the identity thing, that was a question that I asked him because I wanted to, see what it was. We always, want to know what the identity is. I loved his answer. I really did, Paul. I loved the fact that he said, I want to talk to my team about the identity before I tell you guys, and I thought that was a great answer. So that should be exciting if you're in that Raiders locker room. But to your, original question, just hearing him talk about scheme and understand that it's not necessarily about the scheme, it's more about the personnel and not trying to fit, a square into a round circle, right? I mean, that's what we always get so frustrated about when we're watching games and we're watching teams, regardless who it is when you see coaches and coordinators that are hell-bent on this guy has to do what I want him to do as opposed to what does this guy do really well and let me showcase that. And that is what Clint Kubiak, no matter where he's been, has been able to do. And so he emphasized that when it came to the personnel and said that, hey, there's a lot of talent on this team, and we're going to work with them to showcase what they can do. And that, to me, was refreshing because I do believe that there's talent on this Raiders squad, but you have to put them in position to succeed. I mean, man, we're talking about Michael Mayer, who at one point was the best tight end in the college land. Right. Before anybody was talking about Brock Bowers, talking about Michael Mayer, and I don't think he's been used to the best of his ability yet since he's been in the league. And so that gets me excited that knowing Clint Kubiak is a sharp mind and that he's going to be willing to work with the personnel as opposed to making the personnel work with him.
And that's always key. And here's kind of a teaser for the season too, Q, is when you look at PFF, the team last year that had the most success in 12 personnel, that's 2 tight ends, was Clint Kubiak's scheme with the Seattle Seahawks. Somebody we don't talk about a lot, though, Mike McCoy. He's basically Clint's right-hand man in all of this situation. I'm not going to say he's got the pelts on the wall like a Pete Carroll did, but he's been a head coach on a couple different occasions. He's been in this division, and if I may say so, he's got a little bit of that Rich Gannon kind of red ass in him, too. Played for the late, great Willie Brown at Long Beach State as a quarterback.
Yeah.
What does Mike McCoy bring to Clint Kubiak's staff?
Experience, right? Experience. He's another set of eyes. He's another set of ears. He's a good conversational football mind that he can help him do anything. And that's how he described him when he sat down and talked with us. He said, he's basically anything that I need from him, I could go to him and know that I can get it. And I can help, and we can have these shared conversations together. I think that McCoy is a great asset for Clint Kubiak when you realize that this is a first-year head coach. And then you start to see some of the assistants that are on the staff, and you see that they have plenty of experience in their roles, right? I mean, we know Robbie Leonard is a first-year defensive coordinator. He's been a defensive line coach, linebackers coach, but he's getting to be the defensive coordinator now. So you have a Joe Day Camillus in there, right? That's a longtime special teams coordinator. You bring in a Rick Dennison, longtime offensive line coach. You have all these different guys with all these different experiences, and Mike McCoy, I think, really helps out the first-year head coach in Clint Kubiak.
Not only that, but you got a familiar face. 5 of Kubiak's hires have worked with him or for him in previous stops.
Yep.
Again, Clint Kubiak's 6 different job in 6 straight years. You got some stability there now, hopefully, going forward. Andrew Janocko, the offensive coordinator. Obviously, it's going to be Clint's scheme. He's going to be the primary play caller. Mm-hmm. And if you have McCoy already on staff, and he's a quarterback himself when he played, what does Janocko offer beyond being the quote-unquote glorified quarterback coach?
Well, he understands the nuances of what Clint Kubiak wants to do because he's been with them every step of the way, right? Whether that was Minnesota, that was New Orleans, Seattle, now he's with them with the Raiders. And that was one of those that we kind of identified early that we expected was going to be coming over to the Raiders with Clint Kubiak. And obviously there was some interviews he took in Seattle, but all roads led to the Raiders. And so, yeah, he just has that familiarity and that know-how, that understanding of what needs to be expected. And so when Clint Kubiak is working with another position group, Janocko could be working with another position group, knowing that, hey, this is what we need to do. This is what the goal is. And on top of that, as he told us in his introductory press conference, he's never called a game by himself, right? All these people come together and collaborate, and I think that that's a big deal as well. They all set the plan in place to go out there and try to win games on Sundays.
Q, it's been fun, and as always, I like joining you on the radio show. I got my new walk-up music planned out already, but when we got to reverse it and play Boomerang, it's good for you to join me. Thank you so much for your time, man. I know you're busy out there.
I always appreciate you, my man. Good stuff.
Talk to you soon. I am now joined by Chris Rose of the NFL Network. Chris, it's been a long time since we've seen each other in person, but let's just dive right into it here at the Combine. The Raiders are on everybody's minds. They got the number 1 pick, but I want to go a little deeper here. I want to talk about the guys that make things happen down in the dirt, really, the offensive line, and you doing your stuff with the Browns. Why is every single Brown offensive lineman hitting free agency, and who would be a good fit for the Raiders?
It's called perfect timing, Paul. It's called perfect timing. It's interesting because, 4 of those guys, true veterans, from right to left, Conklin, Teller, Posick in the middle, and the Bitonio, who's still deciding whether or not to retire or to keep playing or whatever. They were a really good offensive line. They started playing together pretty much in 2020. I think Posick maybe came a little bit later than that. But Teller had been traded there from Buffalo, I want to say in 2019. Bitonio was a draft pick after he was a star here at the Combine out of the University of Nevada in 2014, and he's been a stalwart ever since day one. For a while, it was right next to a Hall of Famer in Joe Thomas, who's now my preseason television partner in the booth. And they were really good, and they made the playoffs in 2020. They made the playoffs again in 2023. And unfortunately, guys started to break down, and the guys, their contracts were up. And it is a holy mess. But we'll see if we can fix that at pick 6 and 24 and a few others.
Well, and that's the thing with the Raiders. They hold the number 1 overall pick, and they're being connected to Fernando Mendoza, obviously, here. But it starts down low. It starts in the trenches. And are there some guys in the Browns, the offensive line, that could be a good fit for a Clint Kubiak offense to help protect somebody like a Fernando Mendoza with the Raiders? And obviously, you probably, as a Browns guy, want to see them all stay put, so to speak, but who would be a good fit for that kind of a scheme, you think?
Well, look, Conklin's not going to come back. Teller, his wife already wrote a lovely Instagram post thanking the city of Cleveland, where they were welcomed and they became a big part of the community. I can't imagine that Posick, off of a pretty significant injury toward the end of the year, is coming back. And like I said, Bitonio, who knows after a dozen years if he wants to keep putting his body through this for what, probably another tough year record-wise. I would say Teller is maybe the one guy you would want to look at. Conklin's just had too many injuries and unfortunately hasn't been on the field. And he's not the player that he once was, right? I mean, he's now been in this league. It would be, I believe, year 11 this year around, and that's a tough go, either year 11 or 12. And when your body's breaking down, it's not like you get healthier all of a sudden in season 11 or 12. So I would say that Wyatt Teller's the one guy who still might make sense. He has been up and down production-wise, but I would say that he's probably better than what the Silver and Black have offered the last couple of years.
Makes sense. Also, beyond the guys that have to protect the quarterback's got to have some guys to throw the ball to. Trey Tucker, guy from Akron. You're a Shaker Heights guy. Mm-hmm. What do you know about Trey Tucker, and how could he potentially benefit from, again, somebody potentially like a Fernando Mendoza, but also in a Clint Kubiak offense?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you watched the Seahawks, obviously Clint's previous stop, like they threw the ball to JSN, and who else did they throw it to? A.J. Barner, their tight end. We know that the Raiders have one of the best young players there, obviously, at that position, so we're good there. But it never felt like Rashid Shaheed. He caught some big passes after he came over in the trade from New Orleans, but he didn't feel like a dependable number two. So I'd be curious if he'll be able to develop that with the Raiders. So Tucker, he's going to get his shot. He's going to get a shot. He's speedy. He's made some plays, obviously not enough with this squad because they have had so many holes on offense. But, good for him that he's going to get a fresh set of eyes on him with a brand new coaching staff and regime that's going to get in there and hopefully do something good. We'll see. Yeah,
and then lastly, I just want to kind of wrap with you. I know you're busy. Back in the early 2000s, we were both kind of baseball guys, so to speak. I covered the Dodgers and the Angels for the LA Times. You were down there at Fox Sports. And when you look at the NFL player, and you look at the Raiders roster, who do you think kind of stands out to you as somebody that could potentially make that transformation to a baseball player? And just FYI, cheat code here.
Oh my gosh.
Brock Bowers put on a massive power display in a charity softball game last year. Put on a hitting display. He was hitting bombs that Jose Canseco was hitting bombs off of last year too.
That's not bad. Not bad. Well, I love Ashton Gentry's build for baseball. Okay, and the nice thing is that when he is on offense, he will not be getting hit immediately at a home plate.
True.
Which unfortunately happened a lot when he got hit pretty much at or behind the line of scrimmage on virtually it felt like every other carry with the Raiders. So I would like to see him. Maybe. I think he would be a really dependable with his shiftiness and his ability to move. I don't know if there's any defensive backs that could patrol center field for the. I don't know.
Yeah.
The Athletics are coming out there eventually, but actually they've got a pretty good young everyday lineup. So I've just talked to a bunch of the Athletics. They're super excited. They've got 2 more years in Sacramento before they start visiting you guys and making that part of their permanent hometown. But hopefully the Raiders, once they draft Mendoza, start to figure it out and they can grow up into something that they can be proud of there in the AFC West, while the Athletics start getting into contention there in the American League West in the baseball world.
From your lips to the big Raider in the sky's ears. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Paul, appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care. Coming up, I catch up with Solomon Wilcots, and we talk a little Raiders-Bengals history as well as what the future may hold for the Raiders at the Combine.
Meet Max Out. He's a credit wrecker. His eyes are bigger than his wallet. And his credit score pays the price. You see, Max doesn't know he should only use 30% or less of his credit limit, because using his full line can lower his score. Don't be like Max Out. Instead, learn how to avoid the wreckers at creditwreckers.com. Credit One Bank, for what's ahead.
Hey, I am joined now by Solomon Wilcots from Sirius XM Radio. And Solomon, thank you so much for taking the time. 2 quick questions. I know we want to dive deep into the Combine here, but First two questions. Number one, can you still do the Icky Shuffle?
Absolutely. I've been doing it way too long to give it up now. Yes.
Exactly. And number two, I was actually at that Raiders-Bengals playoff game. I was a 20-year-old junior college student cutting my teeth in journalism, and I was at that playoff game. My question for you is, where were you? I've looked at that play over and over again. I don't think you were on the field, but where were you when Bo Jackson went down on that last tackle?
Yeah, I was on the other side coming around. Remember, he broke off our left side,
right.
I do recall. And it was my good friend, linebacker Kevin Walker, who had sort of corralled him around the ankle. And, Kevin liked to tell everyone it was a vicious hit. It really wasn't. He sort of had wrapped Bo around the ankle, and it was Bo Jackson's sheer strength where he tried to rip out of the grasp of the defender, and he literally ripped the femur bone right out of the hip socket. And that's what created the injury. And unfortunately, and I remember we were all around after the game, and they wheeled him out, and we all were wishing him the best. And to think that he would never play again after that, we were crestfallen for him. But they beat us in that game, and they advanced in the playoffs, and our season was over. So even Bo was a killer, man. Bo was a guy that was very difficult to stop. And still to this day, he was one of the greatest running backs, even though he had a very short NFL career, one of the greatest running backs the game has ever seen.
You know what's interesting about that, Solomon? I just spoke to Bo. He stopped by Radio Row the week before the Super Bowl in San Francisco, and we talked about that play. And he said actually it was a blessing in disguise because it gave him a certain perspective in life. So things happen, weird things happen for a reason. You were there on the field, you were pursuing. So again, just funny how the world sporting world especially, comes full circle. And now you're there at the Combine looking for the next Bo Jackson or the next Solomon Wilcots to go on in a career. When it comes to the Raiders, a lot of teams have mocked, obviously, a quarterback to the number one spot, Fernando Mendoza. What are you seeing there at the Combine? And when it comes to the Raiders with that number one overall pick, where do you think they should go?
Look, I think it's a no-brainer. It's rare that if you get the first overall pick and you have a need at the quarterback position, it's rare that guy is going to be there. The two have to align. There's been years where teams have had that first overall pick. They need to find a quarterback, but that player doesn't seem to be that transformational or transcendent talent that you want at that position. So think about a Peyton Manning when he was coming out, or a Joe Burrow when he was coming out. Many of us believe that Fernando Mendoza is that player. Look at what he did at the University of Indiana. Yeah. They've never seen that kind of performance. And to go through a murderer's row, a schedule of Ohio State University, to beat teams like Alabama, to beat teams like Miami, to have to get hit in the chops in the championship game, taste your own blood, and still maintain the kind of courage and leadership that he showed, the poise in that game to lead his team to an undefeated season and to a championship. I think that shows you that he has the stuff. He has the tremendous football IQ. He has a tremendous work ethic. He showed the toughness and poise that's needed to lead an organization. So for many of us, he checks all the boxes.
Yeah. One of those boxes to check here is the last quarterback to win the Heisman and the national championship in the same year was the guy you're familiar with. You mentioned him just now, Joe Burrow, back in 2019. Do you see any common traits? I mean, maybe not physically, but traits that's very familiar or similar between Fernando and Joe?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think there are a number of traits. Now, let's talk about that senior year, that quantum leap they took in their final year of college. They carry the school on their back to a championship. That's not easy to do, particularly when you're talking about a college football playoff where one bad Saturday or one bad game means your run is over. But he just continued to get better. As the competition got better, his game got better, right? And as teams in that championship game, I saw that with Joe Burrow when he was playing against Clemson. Remember, the defense started to hit him. They started to touch him up and get physical. They wanted to make it a physical game. He never tapped out. His toughness showed. And you don't think about that at the quarterback position being tough. But you better be in our league, right? Yeah. Because the blitz is going to get home every now and then. They're going to start to get you on the ground. If you don't learn to play the quarterback position while getting your jersey dirty, then you better sign up for another job. And we saw Fernando Mendoza. He did that against Miami. Yep. Some of the best defensive linemen in this year's draft were on that team. He was able to play against those guys and still perform at a very high level, and I think it showed you what he's really all about. And so I compare him to Joe Burrow in a lot of ways, but his aptitude, his football IQ, and that's what Tom Brady, I'm sure, loves about Fernando Mendoza. His ability to understand defenses. He's not going to have any problem learning Clint Kubiak's offense. And I think in the short time between now and the start of the regular season, the guy's very bright, and quarterbacks have to be. They got to be able to put in the work like a coach to learn the offense as well as the coach, so that the other 10 guys in the huddle knows that they have the answers, that they can make the checks at the line of scrimmage to put them in the right play to be able to win football games.
When it comes to quarterbacks, Solomon, obviously they get probably too much credit when things are going right and definitely too much of the blame when things go wrong. He's coming in potentially as a number 1 overall draft pick, and that's the thing. If you're going number 1 overall, usually going to a situation that wasn't all that great the year before. So when you temper that with the expectations, what are some fair expectations then to expect for somebody like a Fernando Mendoza? And again, I got to temper the way I describe this, right? If indeed he is the number 1 pick of the Raiders, what are some of those fair expectations that can be placed upon him?
You can expect to get hit, to be hurried, to be harassed. You can expect that there's going to be some bad days. We saw Caleb Williams go through it. He was the first overall pick in 2024, and we saw him be the highest sack quarterback in that very same season. We saw the body language from Caleb Williams that showed you that there were some bad days at the ballpark, right? There were some long Sundays, and he had to make some adjustments, right? That's to be expected as a rookie quarterback. Joe Burrow was injured during his rookie season, has a season-ending injury 10 games into his rookie campaign. All he did was pick himself up, dust himself off, and take his team to a Super Bowl in year number 2. And we saw Caleb Williams in his second season show that he was worth that first overall pick. But there's going to be some down moments. There's going to be some highs and some lows. At the end of the day, when you're the first overall pick, that means you're going to the worst team from the year before, right? Sure. That all is not going to be right. All is not going to be perfect. All you're going to do is you have to be the guy, just like we saw Cam Ward go through that last year. You have to be the guy that keeps showing up. You got to be the guy that keeps having a positive attitude as you come to work every day, and that there are going to be some sad days. There's going to be some tough times, but the resiliency and the poise that's needed is what's going to help you grow into becoming a champion. And all eyes are going to be on you. So Fernando Mendoza knows that. Tom Brady can help him with that. There's going to be some conversations to help him to prepare for maybe some tough and difficult times. But if you can weather that storm, it's going to be some sunshine on the other end. But it starts with the quarterback position.
Starts and ends. Solomon, thank you so much. And just for that, I think when we get off camera, I'll do a little Icky shuffle in your honor.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Icky will appreciate that. Thank you, Paul.
That's my guy from UNLV. Thanks a lot, Solomon. Take care.
That's right. All right. Take care.
Hey, so that'll do it for this week's edition of Upon Further Review. Thanks to our guests, Solomon Wilcots, Chris Rose, and Q Myers. To stay up to date on all things Silver and Black, check out our shows and watch them all on our YouTube channel, and visit Raiders.com for more content.